Are you ready to stop the self-sabotage and create the life you desire? Well, in order for that to happen, you need to break free from the bad beliefs that are holding your success hostage. You need to optimize the stress by turning it into extra energy for success. And those hurtful habits? Well, we need to give that pain a purpose for progress. Welcome to Stop the Self-Sabotage and Create the Life You Desire podcast. What is the fastest way to enter situational depression? I'm not talking about clinical depression where you're going to need some sort of medication. I'm talking about situational depression where you feel the absolute overwhelm, the roller coaster of emotions. You thought this was going to work and now it hasn't. And why even bother trying? What's the fastest way to get there? Disappointment. Disappointment that led to disillusionment. Disappointment that something outside of you was going to make things better. Finally, whenever I get this, I'll feel that. And you lose the image and the vision of who you really are. Because what's the fastest way to success? That's going to be through the idea of who you really are, and then the opportunity to make it happen. To where the success is actually the journey of the revelation of who you really are. And so it doesn't matter if you get a specific end result like the job or maybe the weight loss number or the size that you're going to wear by a certain time period or the relationship. It's who you've become along the way. So where do you go when you get disappointed? That's my question for you today. Because if you're in my world, it's usually the place that you go is the coping mechanisms that you used as a child to survive a time in your life when your needs were abandoned, rejected, neglected, and you had to become something that you weren't for someone else to be okay, and thought you'd get the crumbs of connection, that they'd finally feed you. And so you're experiencing identity anorexia. You're literally starving. So where do you go when you're disappointed? Because where you go is no longer coping. See, the subconscious part of your mind that runs all of your habits and patterns and your beliefs and your emotions, it always looks to amplify and accelerate whatever you've been experiencing. And so where you went at one point allowed you to survive, but it's gone past that now. Because that disappointment turns into a depression goal, situational depression. You have to be very careful how I phrase that. So the depression's goal is to hug you until it squeezes the life right out of you. It's like a snake that begins to wrap around you. And you're like, oh, well, this feels familiar, which means it feels comfortable. It's kind of warm putting on these unhealthy coping mechanisms. Snakes can't give you any warmth. They just actually reflect back what you are putting off yourself. And so it begins to wrap around you and it feels comfortable and maybe even soothing with that, I don't know, food compulsion or the alcohol or the anger or the isolation. Yeah, you know it. It's familiar. But then it begins to wrap around you even further and even tighter until what was once familiar is now an absolutely overwhelming fear state that takes your breath away. You have the power over this, but to experience the progress, you need to have what's known as transfer of authority or transfer of power, where you have someone that you can regulate with. You put things back in order, and then after they're back in order, you can then regulate. And then after you regulate, you become functional. And after functional, you reach the highest level, which is intelligence. It is all there waiting for you, but you cannot do this in isolation, which is the very thing that this disappointment that led to disillusionment that now is an overwhelming fear. It wants to pull you back. It wants you to hide. And the very thing you have to do is reach out to others who have what you want, because their identity is upgraded, and you need to experience the mirror neurons that are going to fire off in your brain where they reflect back your own brilliance. If I can assist you with this, I'd be honored to reach out on my website for your complimentary coaching call. But until then, I want you to think about, where do you go when you're disappointed? Because the voice of advancement will stop speaking to you once you've crossed that threshold. And that disappointment is going to lead you into the dark. You've got to be around somebody that is going to help you ignite your brilliance. And so the goal of this disappointment, this disillusionment, this fear is to hug you until it squeezes all the life out of you. Get around somebody who says, you don't have to wear that. That's not really who you were. That's the situation you were put in. And so now the ideas and the opportunities for you to realize more of who you really are waiting. Reach out to the person or the people that can reflect back how you can make it happen for yourself.